Hey, happy Thursday, everyone. So if you are like me, I am stepping into the tail end of my week, and I was just contemplating some really interesting things that came up in session, and I thought I'd take a breather from talking about my coaching program, although if you haven't heard about it, make sure you learn more about it, but we're going to take a break from it this morning. So I wanted to share a very quick poem that some of you might be aware of, and some insight and reflection that a client and I had. So first I want to say, someone brought this book for me. She is a previous client. Love her. She brings me a lot of her books, and she did not know that Shel Silverstein is one of my favorites. I remember reading this in grade school, and so I was thrilled that this is one of the books she gave me. So I want to read you a poem. So this is called Friend. Oh my gosh, I feel like the librarian in grade school, so I'm going to try to do this. So Friend, there's a bee on your head. Don't turn around. Don't move a muscle. Don't make a sound. Before he can sting you, I'll kill him dead, and you will be saved from the bee on your head. And this is called Friend. So the reason that I'm reading this to you is that part of my Untangled Mind pathway is that we dig into attachment, because it's very important. This is not about blaming mom, dad, our attachment figures, but this is about recognizing that it does inform how we relate to people in the future. So here's the thing. This poem can come off as like really cute and quirky and all the things. Sorry, I'm tipping here. But it actually exposes a truth that a lot of us run into when it comes to our attachment wounds. Well, here's the first thing I want to say. I know it's very in vogue right now for everybody to say that they've got attachment trauma. What I want to say is no, you don't. People do have attachment wounds. We are talking about deep traumas where there's a real rift between the attachment figure, mom, dad, whatever, and how you related to them or how you felt secure, loved as you were growing up. It doesn't mean just because mommy and daddy told you no that you have an attachment wound. Now, if mommy and daddy didn't show you love and support and they were dismissive, or they vacillated between showing love and support and then avoidance, this can cause an attachment wound. But not everybody has attachment trauma. Please stop saying everybody has attachment trauma, but I digress. So what's really interesting is this client and I are working on how her legitimate attachment traumas are showing up in her everyday life, whether it be in her intimate relationships or even in friendships, and how this attachment wound can almost be this lens that we look through. Okay, so I'm going to move you over here. It's tipping, and so I don't know if that's me or you. So attachment trauma often puts this lens over our eyes. And so as I read this quirky poem, Friend, there's a bee on your head. Don't turn around. Don't move a muscle. Don't make a sound. Before he can sting you, I'll kill him dead, and you will be saved from the bee on your head. So what's really interesting is that often with attachment wounds, that the people that were supposed to protect us are often the ones to hurt us instead. And so then what we do is we might actually believe that that was the right thing. So attachment trauma, what happens is that these new dynamics come up with our relationships. So often what we find is where the love that we received was laced with control, or silence was often mistaken for safety, or even being saved meant that you had to disappear. So this is what attachment trauma kind of does to our lens of life and how we approach relationships. And listen, these wounds do not just stay in childhood. They really show up in adulthood. And so what you do is you find yourself in friendships and relationships where you feel responsible for other people's emotions. Or worse, you allow harm to yourself because it's framed with love. And so as my client and I are discussing this, she giggled at the poem at first. I printed it off for her. She giggled. She's like, that's a great poem. I'm like, hold on. Let's actually read the poem. The hammer in this poem, that might be somebody's criticism. Maybe it's their manipulation, or it's this invasive support of you. And often what I see with individuals that have some pretty long-lasting attachment traumas that they haven't recognized, and they keep repeating this pattern over and over because their subconscious mind is trying to find healing, what happens is they choose friends that use a hammer all the time. And they give and give and give. Maybe they're going to love me today. Maybe they're actually going to accept me today. And then pretty soon they come in and they start doing their work and they're like, wait a second, was that loving that they did that? Did I silence myself in this relationship? So often the hammer is that friend exerting control or manipulation of that attachment wound. I'm not saying that they're always doing this deliberately. It's usually kind of a subconscious thing, push and pull that happens. But the truth is that real care from someone doesn't require silence. It doesn't require that you just, give in and do whatever they want. That's not real care. And so when we have this lens of attachment wounds, we read these silly little poems and go, oh, isn't that cute? It's like, hold on a second. Let's really look at friend. And if you think about what Shel is saying here is that friend's like, I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you. But if you get whacked with that hammer, is that saving? Is that saving? So here's the thing. We get to rewrite our friendships and our relationships and what connection looks like. And you get to choose who holds the hammer. Or does that have to be a hammer? No. In fact, why do we need a hammer to help our friend from a bee? We don't. There's no requirement to have a hammer when there's a bee that could sting you. So we have a choice to decide whether individuals belong in our life or they don't. But with that attachment trauma, it is so hard to see through those lenses. So I really want to challenge you. And I know it's funny that this little poem, it really does speak to the lens that we look through, that we filter life through if we have unresolved attachment wounds. Now, this is what I want to say. We always have our attachment wounds and they always sit with us, period. I still have mine. And even though they're resolved, sometimes they come up because it's just part of how my brain developed in an environment that sometimes goes back to it. But the whole point of stepping into understanding attachment trauma, attachment wounds, is to find healing and to be able to slow our response. So for example, I grew up with an anxious attachment. Now, when it comes to like taking little assessments and stuff, it doesn't ping anymore, which is fantastic. But what I recognized over the years is that because of the anxious attachment, I believe that my love is received through performance and the degrading of self. So everything is about everyone else and to the detriment of myself. And this has really hurt over the years. And I had to recognize, I healed that with my husband. We've been married almost 21 years. And so I was able to see what intimate attachment, secure attachment looked like. But then I started noticing it in friendships. And I was like, why do I keep attracting people that I do everything over and over and over and I get nothing reciprocated? What is going on? Or I remember times where I would do something for someone and they'd say they had their best intentions in mind for me, but then I look back at it, I'm like, but that really hurt. So doing the attachment work is recognizing patterns with who you are choosing in your life, why you're choosing, and how you're interacting with them relationally. So, friend, is it your friend? Does that look like a friend with a hammer? I just really challenge you to really consider if your attachment wounds are the lens through which you're looking through life, and challenge you to reframe those. You have a choice how you connect with others. And it's hard because when you start making changes like this client, she recognized, gosh, these people really weren't real friends and they don't like me right now. Yeah, because they're not getting all their needs met at your expense. So this last question I want to ask you. There's a friend with the hammer, right? There's a bee on your head. There's a difference between intention and impact. People can say all day long, well, that wasn't my intention. But what was the impact of that relationship in your life? Really step out of it and investigate it. What was the impact of the way they spoke to you? I remember in 2020, terrible year. We got released from lockdown. I guess it was like the July of 2020, June of 2020. I went to the lake with my... Oh no. Okay, sorry about that. So we went to the lake as a family, and unfortunately I got lake water stuck in my ear. And there was a parasite in the lake water, and it was scary. Had this like huge fever, ringing in the ear, pain, my face went numb, the whole thing. Nobody knew. Everybody thought I was having a stroke. Anyway, we found out it was a parasite. I lost hearing. I digress. Here's the thing that I recognized during that time. I had a friend, and when I said to her in a really painful moment, like I had been going through a lot, it was obviously on the heels of 2020. I lost my business. I had the year before a breast cancer scare. I mean, it was like a lot. And in a moment of emotionality and just like, I can't believe this is happening, I said to her, I just don't understand. I don't understand why God's doing this to me. Why is this happening? Now, here's the thing. Her response spoke to the lens that I was viewing her through. She said, why do you have to make everything spiritual? Y'all, if you don't know me, Jesus is my number one, and she knew that. But she weaponized that against me. She used my faith as the hammer to swat away the bee. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I am in a dance of attachment trauma with this woman, and I've got to get out as fast as possible. It was such an eye-opening and painful moment because she hit me with that damn hammer. But I had to understand what that hammer was. It was the acceptance of similar personality traits from an attachment figure. And I had to make the choice to decide how I connected with her. So I leave that with you today. I hope that this helps you understand that we can unlearn those painful relational patterns. We absolutely can. And you're absolutely not alone in this. So you don't have to stay stuck in those stories that you've saved in your head at the cost of yourself. You just don't. So thanks, Shel Silverstein. And a really fun, creative way to talk about attachment trauma with the client. Take care, everyone. Have a great Thursday.